Good afternoon, everyone. What an amazing crowd. So I'm Neela Razi Howe, and I'm the co-host of this event with Kate Mitchell. I've been doing it for 4 years, and I have to tell you, this is, the Montgomery conference is my absolute favorite conference to go to, and this is my favorite part of the conference. Like Maha, I've been here since the beginning. Unlike her, I did miss one of the conferences 1 year overlapped with the birth of my child. And as supportive as Jamie is with women, I was pretty sure he really didn't want to be involved with that process. So I did skip 1 year. I am thrilled to introduce our next keynote. Lynda Weinman is the founder of Lynda.com, a company that was recently sold to LinkedIn for $1.5 billion. But let me tell you what I absolutely love about her. We, and by we I mean women in technology, we spend a lot of time talking about STEM and the importance of STEM and about getting girls inspired to go into STEM education. And it's absolutely important, there's no question about it. But solving the STEM problem is a multi-generational thing. It is not going to solve the issue of women in technology for us, at least in any timeline that's relevant to us. To enable more diversity in tech, you have to go beyond STEM if you want to have a near-term impact. You have to open that aperture. And it has to be about more than just getting more people interested in science and technology and math. It's about creating incredible on-ramps for people who have diverse perspectives, for people who come from different backgrounds, for people who are critical thinkers, for people who can solve really complicated policy problems, for people who are amazing artists and, by the way, can make all those great products actually usable for the rest of us, and for people who can build amazing businesses. And no one embodies this more than Lynda does. She is and this is coming from an English lit major who spent her entire career in tech. Lynda is a non-technical visionary who used technology to completely disrupt an industry and create on-ramps for the rest of us to get into technology. She showed the power of passion and entrepreneurship and what it can do to really create opportunity for a broad segment of folks. And what I think is incredible is she has made us reimagine STEM as STEAM. Add the A for arts. It really matters. Joining Lynda on stage will be Carrie Dolan, who's the assistant managing editor in Forbes, and she's been there for decades covering all sorts of different topics. But most importantly, she's one of the 2 principal editors at Forbes who oversees their marquee lists, the world's billionaires, and America's 400 richest. So we all want to be on Carrie's radar someday. Please help me welcome to stage Carrie and Lynda.
Well, Neely, thank you for that great introduction. I don't think you could have set up Lynda's background and importance any better than you have. One other great description I've read about you, Lynda, is that as you're described as the mother of the internet. I don't know, okay, maybe you don't like that one. So most people in this room probably know Lynda because of Lynda.com. But before she started that company, she had you have a whole interesting career. So, and it seems to me like there's some connections, like they all kind of went from one to the other. So yeah. Talk a little bit about, what'd you study in college? Like how'd you get from from there to where you are now?
Well, I studied humanities. I studied history, philosophy, business. I went to an unorthodox college, Evergreen State College, where there are no grades. And almost everything is interdisciplinary, and there's a huge emphasis on critical thinking, seminar-style interactions with your peers and your faculty. So everybody is encouraged to talk, learn how to collaborate, learn how to think, learn how to present. And that definitely served me well throughout my whole career. And I think another really key aspect of that kind of education was the permission that you're in charge of the choices that you're going to make in your life, And if you're not happy doing what you think you want to do, make a change. And I did that many times.
So how did you go from studying humanities at Evergreen? Then you were in film, right? You
Correct.
worked in film.
Nepotism.
I didn't know that.
I mean, I heard the last panel and, that idea of networking with who you went to college with. So I had filmmaker friends that I had gone to high school and college with, and I thought I was going to go into gallery work, and that was, I wanted to be in museum curation. That was actually my interest, but I couldn't find work in that area, and so friends of mine who worked in the film industry invited me in, and I learned how to become an animation camera woman and draw animation cells. I worked in special effects, and it was interesting, and I earned a decent amount of money doing it, but it wasn't really my passion. And when I discovered the personal computer, I got so enthusiastic. I had one of the early Macs, and no one could shut me up about it. I was just, a walking TV commercial for it. And I loved teaching myself how to use it, and then I loved showing other people how to use it. And I had never thought about becoming a teacher or that I had good teaching or communication skills, really, because I was kind of working in a darkroom drawing, doing animation. So it was a revelation to me that that was something that I was good at, but I learned that people came to me over and over again wanting to learn things, and eventually I got a job as a teaching professional at a renowned art college, and I taught there for Art Center College of Design in Pasadena, and I taught there for 7 years, and I was the first teacher to teach motion graphics. I was the first teacher to teach web design, and I taught a class called Digital Gumbo, which was combining a bunch of different software tools, and got to work with artists, and I just had a real knack for explaining technical things to non-technical people.
And when was it that you realized you were a good teacher? I mean, because not everybody
has
that gift,
I
right?
almost felt that I was elected to become a teacher. It wasn't something that I ever intended to be or do. But once, in a way, I remember, seeing The Graduate. I'm older than probably most of you. I'm 62. But, he was like, go into plastics. Plastics is the it thing. Well, I was in the it thing without expecting to be or deciding to be. The beginning of the computer age and being a person who could translate that world for other people became a very, very valuable skill. And really our entire company, Lynda.com, was leveraged on that idea.
So you taught at Art Center. You also wrote a textbook, right? That was a huge bestseller. Talk about how you decided to do a textbook and how you sold it.
Well, I loved writing out the lesson plans, and my philosophy was, listen to me in class, don't take notes, go home with the notes that I've given you so that you can actually be present for what I'm showing you, because I found that, especially with technology and artists who are, maybe the least, I call it, teaching technology to mere mortals, people who are not technologists, but they need to know the technology to do their craft. It's that they would, get so hung up on the language and where is that menu item, and I just really wanted to connect with people. And it was interesting because later, jumping ahead to Lynda.com, where we started to record the lessons and memorialize different teachers and different lesson plans, I realized it was that exact same thing that I was trying to do when I taught in college, to let people look and hear versus read and get hung up on taking notes, that it was just a really different learning process and a very powerful one.
You were really a pioneer in that idea of having people learn by watching videos, right? And early on, am I right that you would mail VHS tapes?
Oh yeah.
I mean, that's kind of, that's going back a ways. But
well, we were before YouTube.
Yeah.
And yes, we started with, our e-commerce was a PO box, and our product was a VHS tape. We started first with a physical classroom. The book that I wrote was the first book on web design, and I wrote it for my Art Center students, realizing that they were going to have to learn web design. It was going to become the new brochures, the new way you would show your portfolio, that it was just an essential skill. And
And this was, just to give it some timing, it was in the mid-90s, early days of what?
Yeah, this is early.
So early days
90s.
of the internet becoming widespread.
Yeah, I mean, internet was still, I mean, I got lynda.com because I had written an article in a magazine, and someone, Debbie at Debbie.com, had written to me, and she was bragging. She was bragging about how she had a web page that had all the links to all the Debbies on the web. And there were maybe 20 links on that page. I mean, it was super early on. And I thought, oh, I wonder if I can get lynda.com. And I got it for $35.
Oh my gosh, that's great.
And then when we had to buy Lynda with an I, which we had to do, once the company got super successful so we could be on radio and not have to spell Lynda.
Oh, you got both?
Oh,
so
we
in
had
case
to
people
get,
misspelled
yeah, we
it.
had to buy Li, and it was, at the time it was $250,000 to buy that. So getting it for $35, I mean, it's funny. But, just being there sort of at the beginning of time. And my book publisher, when I wrote that book, it was because I really wanted my Arts Center students to understand how to publish to the web, and I couldn't find a book that they would understand. I found HTML books and super technical books. And so, I just knew that they needed something different. And then that book really just became the next leverage point to creating all kinds of other things. And I left my teaching post and started a physical school. When we first started lynda.com in Ojai, it was a physical school, and my husband had this, well, another thing I feel like is really important to our story is, I was a teacher, and my husband was an artist. And he also—
I'm not hearing business person in
No,
either
there's
of
no
those.
business,
Right.
there's no
Yeah.
MBA, there's
Yeah.
no business anywhere. And he also has Asperger's, and so he's a really different kind of thinker. He sees patterns that other people don't see, and he's awkward socially. But he had this idea that we should rent a high school over spring break and offer classes and see who would come. And I mean, someone came from Vienna, Austria to our first class.
And this was in Ojai?
In Ojai, California.
And
so
how did they even know?
they knew because of the best-selling book, the book
Okay.
on web design that I had written. And I couldn't even get a publisher to publish it. I had to publish it first as magazine articles. Another thing that I really liked in the panel that we just heard is this idea of just not taking no for an answer, and you figure out another way. Like if there was no option for failure, what would you do?
Right,
It's
so
such
when
a
you
good
went to
question.
go publish that book,
No one would
publisher
publish
wanted-
it,
yeah.
and I needed to earn money. I needed the advance to write the book. And so instead I got a magazine publisher to let me do a monthly series, and I wrote my book as a monthly series, and that was how Debbie at Debbie.com found me.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Wow.
Yeah.
So this weekend, or a spring break of classes in Ojai,
Yeah.
that was kind of the test case for the school.
It was a test case. It was, it sold out. Only 2 people came from California. It was astonishing. It was the very beginning, the dawn of the internet age. And what better proof that, that this is a global opportunity than to
And you
have
were
done
teaching them HTML? What were you teaching?
Yeah, web design, motion graphics, all the same things
Yeah.
I had taught at
At
Art
Art
Center,
Center,
actually. Photoshop, things like that.
So then for a while you had, how many years was it just a physical school in
About
Ojai?
3 years. And I think 3 or 4 years into it, the dot-com crash happened, the attack on the Twin Towers happened, people stopped traveling, all of the, our first year in business, and, this was just my husband's weird idea to rent a high school computer lab, and then we found a space and we opened our own school, and our first year of business, we had $1.7 million in revenue, and we had hired 15 people. And it was just, this sort of random idea that he had. He thought, if you can teach a sold-out class in Peoria, Illinois, why can't you teach a sold-out class in Ojai in a school that you own versus working for everybody else? So he just had that, he saw that pattern. He saw something that I would have never seen, that it was bigger than me, because that was another sort of friction between us in the beginning, because the site was called lynda.com. I had written the book, and he said, you could hire other teachers. Oh no, they're coming to see me, And he's like, I don't know, give it a shot. And he was totally right. And in the end, we had hundreds of teachers, and it was this idea of going, instead of as an individual contributor, to, really becoming a publishing powerhouse, which is what we
And
were.
people were traveling to Ojai from all over,
all
because
over
I would
the
imagine
world.
the population of Ojai is small enough that it was to
But
support
it
a
was
school
great.
like this.
It's a
right?
beautiful spot, and people loved coming to the spa. I remember, all the software companies, Adobe, Microsoft, everybody. There'd be all these interesting little boondoggles that would happen on expense accounts. Going to the Ojai spa.
It was career development, right?
It was career development.
Right,
It was interesting, interesting days.
And
But
then,
what we didn't know is that a lot of our customers were caught up in the dot-com boom. And so when that crash happened, that was when we started to, okay, what do we do? And it was really scary. And
what happened?
Well, we were
did people
35
stop coming?
people. Yeah, people stopped traveling. I mean, there was I think for a solid month, no one could travel anywhere, and everybody's money dried up. And
Did you have to lay off instructors?
we had to lay off. We were 35 people. We went down to 9 people.
Oh, that must have been.
And it was very hard, and it was traumatic. But it was, okay, what do you do? It's again, what do you do if you can't fail? And it was during a different. Notice we haven't mentioned the word VC yet, because this was all self-funded, and that was such a new concept. It wasn't, I grew up in a different generation. There was no, you get funding to start your company. It was you start your company and you figure out a way to make money, and if you don't make money, you don't stay in business, period. So that was how we felt, was like, we have to make money.
So that 9/11 dot-com crash made you have to lay people off, and then did you move pretty soon after that into
start recording
video?
all the lessons, selling them as videos. I also was writing books. I was consulting. I literally never said no, and I was working harder than most of my friends or anybody else that I knew, just round the clock to try to keep the doors open and the lights on.
So the changes in technology then really helped you then as the internet became more widespread and you could put courses
Correct,
online.
but we were too early to market, so we were before YouTube.
Yeah.
So there was everybody had dial-up when we started Lynda.com. So we had really small, they weren't postage size, but they were really a lot smaller than they ultimately became. And when we upgraded even to DVD, from VHS to DVD, it's an upgrade in resolution of how many pixels are on the screen. So the whole way that we were capturing video and everything that we were doing needed to be changed. And so there were a lot of those kinds of disruptions to ourselves that had to happen.
So this is for people who may look at the headline number of selling Lynda.com for $1.5 billion. There's a lot of hard times along the way before you got that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Nobody gets, I mean, first of all, it was a 20-year overnight success, okay?
So what year did you did you switch from the sending the VHS?
2002, February of 2002.
And then videos online.
That was when we put them online.
And what about venture capital? I mean, I thought that panel was so interesting.
It was great.
And you had a really interesting experience with venture capital. I know you were saying lots of people everybody wanted to invest in you.
Yes. We had people just ravenous to invest in us the entire time because we were the only people in our space who were making money. And
so you didn't really actually need the VC money because you were profitable and growing.
Correct.
So why'd you take the VC money?
Eventually, we chose to take VC money as a desire to have an exit. I decided when I turned 59, by the time I'm 65, I'd like to have another chapter. And also, we were in the very unusual position of our company being more valuable than the revenue it earned. And so there was a lot of value that was in the company and was never going to be realized unless we went public or we sold. And, even for a lot of our employees and our senior executives, who had options, and, they were very patient to wait 20 years.
So what year did you, how long did those discussions take between, okay, we're ready to take VC money and you actually took it, and what year did that happen?
It happened, I guess, about 18 months before we sold to LinkedIn, and we took a Series A for $103 million, and then we took a Series B for $183 million about a year later, or maybe 14 or 15 months later. Everybody wanted to invest in us because we were a sure, fire. We were profitable. We had very good profit margins. We were a very well-run organization. One of the decisions that I made with my husband maybe about 7 years before we sold, or before we ultimately had our exit, was to hire a CEO and to hire an executive team, because as you mentioned, neither of us had MBAs, and it really wasn't our strength. And so we had a lot of help from a lot of really smart, amazing people.
And how did that go? Because your name's on the company, right? And it's your baby.
Yeah.
So getting somebody else to essentially run the day-to-day.
Yeah. Well, in the beginning, before we had investors, there was a very clear chain of command, and we were still 100% in charge. And so we had a great relationship with our CEO and the rest of our C-level team and our VPs. But everybody knew that we were the founders, and we were the main shareholders, and so it was very collaborative. But it was also ultimately the buck did stop with us, and I think that does change when you bring on VCs, and that was a really hard adjustment for me and my husband, to be honest.
And when you raised the VC money, I think you said you were thinking that you were going to go public, right? That was kind of the
that was
intent.
everybody's intention.
Yeah. So
in fact,
what
they were very disappointed. It was a
The
lot
VCs
of,
were disappointed.
Oh yeah, it was a lot of convincing to take the deal, to take the offer, because they were convinced that we would have had a $3 to $5 billion market cap had we gone public, and they were probably right. It was probably a little too soon, but it felt like a perfect fit, and I'm very glad that we did it the way that we did, because I think going public would have even been harder. I mean, I don't know how many founders are there in the room. Can I see a show of hands?
Yeah, I'd love to see founders.
Yeah, it's your baby. It's really hard when other people come in and you're not 100% in charge and you don't agree with decisions, and it got political. It got to be a lot less fun. So having such a quick offer, which came totally out of the blue, was actually something that I was grateful for.
And what was that time period like between the time LinkedIn came knocking on the door and the deal closing?
It was like 3 months. It was unbelievably fast.
Wow.
They wanted it. They wanted to announce. I mean, from the time that we signed an LOI with them, they wanted to announce 6 weeks later that the deal was happening, and then the deal closed like 2 months after that. It was really fast. Really fast. And it drove, it was so hard too, because anybody who's ever been in that situation, and I know it's a rare situation to be in, but everything stops. Like everything, you're marching towards a strategy, and everybody's, our company, we were at a $200 million run rate, and we were just firing on all cylinders and growing and excited and blah, blah, blah. And all of a sudden, you don't know what the strategy is going to be. You don't know if one thing that you're working on is going to be continued after the sale happens. Yeah. And everything starts to be focused on the due diligence, and then you have to keep secrets from everybody. It was horrible because we were a really close-knit company, and especially people towards myself and my husband, Bruce. We were a first name basis. Hi, Lynda. Hi, Bruce. Seeing everybody around, and all of a sudden you had to be secretive and, not let anybody know that this deal was in the making. I was a nervous wreck. I'm such an open, transparent person. It was so hard for me to keep that secret. And it was very suspenseful.
And then after it was sold, did LinkedIn keep you on? Did you stay?
They had me on a 3-month retainer, but I never once met with anybody. They didn't keep most of the senior executives. They had a different idea for how they were going to leverage the property, the acquisition, and I haven't been involved at all. And so it's going to be a 2-year anniversary soon, and something that I worked on for 20 years, and now I'm doing completely different things.
So that's a great segue into what you're doing now.
Well, one of the realizations that I had with Lynda.com was the power of video and the power of film. Watching, I think before the internet, we really never had distribution opportunities to distribute movies on our. I get videos on my phone. On my watch. So I think that the power of video, the power of film, is so enormous, and I got very interested in helping independent filmmakers, documentary filmmakers, I became president of the board of our local Santa Barbara International Film Festival. And my future is in film. That's what I'm really passionate about right now.
That's pretty exciting.
Yeah.
So you have so much entrepreneurial experience, and we've got this room full of founders. What would you be if you had to give 3 or 4 pieces of advice? I'm sure you probably have a lot of advice, but I mean things that supported you, that kept you going, because you seem like a very positive person, and not taking no for an answer when you were trying to publish your book. For sure. I mean, what other things do you feel like have helped you be as successful as you were?
Yeah, really good question. I mean, I think some of it is just everybody talks in business about playbooks and how everybody else does everything, and we really tried to think about doing things in a different way than our competitors were doing them, not just to be different, but understanding what actually worked and what didn't work. There's a saying that my husband, I don't know where he picked it up, but your marketing spend is the price you have to pay for a bad product. Just being passionate about your product and making your product really powerful so that people love it and they want to spread it and they want to share it. I mean, the number one phone call we would get at Lynda.com is, when are you going to release training on something that we hadn't yet even thought about doing?
So not complaints, but give us more.
I mean, just
right?
people have a voracious appetite for what we were doing, and that's another really key thing is, getting that market validation. I see so many young people who want to be entrepreneurs and, right out of college or just have some sort of, real desire. I mean, they're looking to the exit. I'm really proud of the number, what Lynda.com sold for, but I'm way more proud of how many people we helped and lives we changed, and how our product grew organically, and it grew because it was a great product. And people still, when they hear, oh, Lynda.com, I love Lynda.com.
And
I never say I like it.
No. So yesterday I was having coffee with a friend. I was telling her that I was going to interview you today, and she used to work at a law firm. And she's like, oh my gosh, have you ever gone on Lynda.com? We had to bring back all this stuff that we'd outsourced in-house, and I didn't know how to use the software. And she used Lynda.com, and she loved it, and she figured out how to do it. Yeah. And I think I know several other people who get nothing but praise for all the classes they've taken.
Thank you. Yeah, we had really, a very positive reaction, and so that's another thing that I often say to people is, really make sure that you have market validation. And I knew that I did because I was a popular teacher. Then when we started the school, that was, successful, and there were hard times, like with the .com crash and the travel restrictions and everything. But I knew ultimately that people loved the way that we taught and our approach. And so I think that is really, those are some key things, key takeaways.
Well, I'm going to be cognizant to our time, which is quickly disappearing. I wanted to end with, there was this nice little Wall Street Journal piece about your company right around the time that the announcement came out that you were selling to LinkedIn. And I loved one of these comments. I read the comments, and I love this comment. People like Lynda Weinman, if given the opportunity to achieve their full potential, guarantee that America has a great future. America needs more people like Ms. Weinman. Oh. So we'll end on that note.